Hey guys, we are towards the end of the lawn care season, so we are starting one of our seasonal services, which is Christmas lights. So this is the second year doing this home. We're going to put some beautiful multicolor lights on this house. We're going to wrap these palm trees. We're going to put some lights around these beds, and it's going to look really nice. I'll kind of show you the lights. We use LED lights, of course, fits with our business model, energy efficient. Very bright, but I'll make sure to kind of take pictures of you guys to let you see what it looks like in the end. If it's a service you're interested in adding, I would recommend it if you're in the right market. We're kind of in a newer market for it, so it's taken a while to get really up and going. We are growing it every year, but a lot of times competition can be the best thing for your business, and you see in a lot of markets where there's already this service, a lot of those people have already spent the money educating the customer base. So it's just taking a little bit longer in our market, but we're still making progress each year. So the first important thing in doing your Christmas lights is you have to get electricity up to the roof, because when we do Christmas lights, we run them live. That way we know if each bulb's working while we're actually up on the roof. So first thing I did was I put my timer. I located a good outlet where I can get power from. I plugged in my timer, and then I ran my power cord up, neatly tucked up onto my roof. And now that I've got power ran up to the roof, I'm going to go ahead and jump up on the roof and start running my lights. Now, the first year this takes a lot longer because you have to actually cut all these cords and add plugs and cut your sections of light. If you're using commercial lights, the stuff we're using is commercial lights. You can't get this stuff in box stores. The benefit to this is we can make all of our own extension cords. We can custom cut the lights to fit the house. They look a lot better. They're a lot brighter. And you can get them from various wholesalers. I recommend Christmas Light Contractors Facebook group, and Donovan and Fred are the gentlemen that run that. They sell lights wholesale, and they're about the best prices and customer service that I've found. But next thing we're going to do, we're going to set our ladder up, get up on our roof, and go ahead and run our lights. Okay guys, we got our ladder all set up and we're ready to get up on the roof and start working. First thing when you're setting your ladder up is you want to have the right angle. If it's too steep or too shallow, you're going to have problems. If it's too shallow, too much of an angle, it's going to slip out and you're going to have some problems on it. So the good rule of thumb is if you stand with your feet up against the bottom of the ladder, reach out with your hands. If it's at the right angle, it'll be at a comfortable hands reach. So we've got our ladder set up. Now, I'm a big sissy, and I'm scared of heights. When I was in my 20s, I used to skydive and rock climb and parasail and stuff like that. But with age usually comes wisdom and experience, and I've had some falls and had some serious injuries. So the older I get, the more I don't like to be at heights and other dangerous situations. So I spend a lot getting extra safety equipment. One thing I recommend is a good ladder standoff right here. We use the Ladder Max one. It's easy to puts on in about 20 seconds, and it's nice and stable. It just gives you a wider footprint, makes it more stable where the ladder's, one, not laying on the gutter where it's going to do damage to the house, but two, it makes it a lot more stable. Also, the most injuries happen when you're transitioning to and onto and off of the ladder. That's where most of your accidents are going to happen, most of your falls, and that happens because typically with a ladder, you want to have it 3 rungs above the roof line, and you're going to be stepping around to get on, to get off the ladder. And when you do that, a lot of times that's when you either kick the ladder out or you fall or whatnot. I purchased these really cool handles right here called the Safety Ladder Rail Extension System. And what this allows you to do is you slide it over the top rails of your ladder, and it allows you to walk straight through with these handles. You just walk straight onto the roof, so you're not having to go around your ladder, which is going to alleviate a lot of that danger. we'll put links to this stuff at the bottom if you're curious about buying it. But like I said, this ladder max is really good, as well as these safety extensions. When you get on the roof, you know, an old roofer's trick and what a lot of roofers use to work on the roof is an old mattress pad. You can buy those fairly cheaply on Amazon, and I still use that a lot. But there's a company called Pitch Hopper that made something similar this year called the Pitch Hopper. And what it is it basically has mattress pad on the bottom, and this allows you to stand or sit and not be at that angle on the roof. So it's a lot more comfortable. It's a lot less fatigue. If any of you have done any roof work, you know that it can wear you out. You know, ankles, your feet, just your body, you know, having to be on these extreme slopes all through the day. So if you're curious, this is called the Pitch Hopper. It's very cool. You'll see guys in their videos jumping up and down on these. I'm not that brave, but you know, I do know that they work, and our guys were happy with, you know, how much less fatiguing it was than, you know, using a mattress pad. I do recommend using either one because these, you know, these help you keep from slipping off the roof. So I'm going to set up our harness system. You always want to make sure you're harnessed off properly. The harness system that we use is called the hip lock. Pitch Hopper is this, but it's called hip lock. It's basically like a big clamp that you push up with a pole. It hooks over the ridge, it tightens down, and you hook a rope to it, and it's a safety anchor point so that you don't fall off the roof. But I'll get up on the roof and get started with lights, let you see that. Okay guys, we're all tied in here on the roof. I've got my lights strung out where they go on the roof line, and now we're going to start clipping everything in. A couple quick tips. One, I'll show you how to use this pitch hopper. It's got two sides to it, one for steeper pitches, one for more shallow. This roof's probably about a 7 and 12, maybe an 8 and 12. So I'm going to use the shallower side. So this just gives me a nice little comfortable flat space to sit on. Your lights, you're going to use different kinds of clips. The clips I recommend are called best clips, but there's always different ones. I used to use different clips for shingles and for gutters, and you know, you'd have gutter clips for gutters like this. This is actually a gutter clip, and you'd have shingle tabs for the shingles, and the point of that was to have all the bulbs facing the same direction. One, that makes installation super slow because you have to put the bulbs in the socket while you're at the job site. You can't pre-bulb everything like we did here and pre-clip it, because you don't know how many, you know, I might have 25 shingle tabs and then I got to add 10 gutter clips or whatnot. By using the same clip for all the bulbs, you can pre-bulb everything and you can make your installation many times faster. So we just use these best clips. Other brands are called tough clips. Menleon makes a brand, makes their own, but they all kind of work the same. But this just allows me, I can put this anyway, and although the bulbs are going to stick up on the shingles and out on the gutters, what I realize is nobody really cares. It's still really bright, it looks good, and most people don't even notice or think about it. And we haven't had any customers say anything otherwise, and it just made life much easier for us. But we want to start clipping everything in here. One tip to make installation in the future easier is we put a piece of tape, or we mark the bulbs that go on the peak. That way I can set those first, and I know exactly where, I know exactly where to put the lights on, where they are from the previous year. So what you do is you start at your peak and you start working your way down both sides. So I'm going to start clipping these in here. So all you do is just take these, slide them up under the shingle and slide them in, set them in place. One tip also is you want to make sure you kind of finger tighten your bulbs as you go, because sometimes when you're dragging them around on the ground or on the roof, those bulbs work themselves loose, and you don't want to come back up here or get a service call to come tighten a bulb, so make sure they're tight when you get going. So I'm going to go ahead and clip these in, and then I'll show you guys the next step. Another great benefit to using commercial lights, professional grade lights, is that I can custom fit everything. I can custom cut each one of these strands to fit the roof line, and I can also add plugs anywhere I want to in the line. So for example, I'm going to be adding a wreath down here on the garage right there, And with normal lights that you get from a store, I would have to run an extension cord to that wreath. But with this, I can take this, what's called an inline vampire plug, and I can put it on this cord right here and drop down a custom length extension cord made out of this lamp cord and plug my wreath right into that. So it's very customizable, which is nice. Sometimes when you add these vampire plugs, you don't get a good connection. These things are called vampire plugs because they have two little copper teeth that pierce this insulation when you put the plug on, and that's how it gets power. It can be very frustrating if you add one of those and finish up everything on the roof, get down, go to plug in your wreath and it doesn't work. So I make this little one bulb test light right here so I can test as I go. So I'm just plugging into that. I see I have power here, so now I know that that connection is good. So when you're doing lights, it's always good to make yourself little test bulbs right here so you can test each connection as you go. All right, we're all done up here on the roof. I've got everything clipped in. I've ensured all the bulbs are working because I'm running with the power on. If you're running a new install and you have to cut wire, obviously you don't want your electricity on. What we use for new installs each year is we have a little timer with a remote. And while we're up on the roof, when we need to make a cut and add a plug, we'll just use that remote to turn off power quickly and then make our connection, add our plug, and then turn everything back on to make sure it works. But got everything clipped in nice and neat. I've made sure to secure any connections where things plug in. I've made sure to secure them up outside of the gutter, because what you don't want is your lights shorting out because the plug's down in the gutter where it's going to be full of water when it rains. So anything you can do to save yourself service calls and trips back out to the property will, save you a lot of money, save you a lot of time. Okay, so the main roof is done. All I've got to do now is clip my lights in along these horizontal roofs over the front of the house and the garage. I've got to go up and attach my wreath. I've got a 5-foot wreath that's going to go right here, and I'll show you how we attach that. But you can see I've already ran power like I showed you from the roof. I've got a cord hanging down so that I don't need to get back up on the roof when I do that. I've got to do that, and then I've ran power down from each side. We're going to wrap these palm trees on the corner with multicolor mini lights, so it's going to look really good. Also, I'm going to put stake lights, which are the same lights, the same C9 bulbs we have up here, except on a little landscape stake. I'm going to run those around the beds in the front, and then we'll be done. Okay, we've got our roof front line all finished up. This is the second year doing this, so everything was already cut. So I would say this probably took 30 minutes from the time I got on the roof. Now I need to put lights in these palm trees, and then add stake lighting around the ground. Like I said, the good thing about these commercial lights is I can just add plugs and power wherever I want to in the middle of the line. So on both sides, I've got a cord that drops down right here that I can power both my stake lighting and my lights for my tree with. And I've got the same thing on the other side. So it makes it really nice and clean of an install. I only have one plug going into the wall, so I don't have 5-10 different extension cords to go to each thing that I'm lighting. So it's going to make it nice and clean. Next, I'm going to go ahead and do my stake lighting and my trees. Okay, we've got our stake lighting in. Real important, guys, anytime you're running lights on the ground or around the gutters like we talked about, it's very important to make sure you don't have any connections that are going to be submerged underwater, because it's just going to be a service call. Not only is it going to be a hazard, but it's going to be a service call for you, having to come out here and trip a breaker back. So all my connections are up off the ground. You can see I've clipped my plugs into here so that they're suspended in the air. You don't want to just leave your plugs laying in the air or laying on the ground. You want them up in the air where they're not going to be submerged. Right here where we hook into our tree, I'm going to wrap the mini lights around this wire so that it's up off the ground, because I don't want that just laying right there on the ground, because that could get submerged underwater, especially near a downspout here. So just make sure you have all your connections where they're not going to be underwater, and you're going to save yourself a lot of service calls. Okay, we're about to hang our 60-inch wreath. We're gonna hang it right here in this area. I've already ran power from when I was up on the roof, and I've dropped a cord down to plug into. What we wanna do is we wanna put one anchor in at the top of this peak in the middle. This is vinyl, so where I'm gonna attach is there's gonna be wood up there at the top behind the soffit. I'll show you when I get up there in a minute. But if this was brick or something like that, or stucco, you would use a masonry bit and drill in and attach a concrete screw, like one of the blue anchors. But that's basically all we're gonna do. And then we're gonna use wire on the back of our wreath, coated wire, which I'll show you in a minute, that you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, anywhere. It's just basically wire for hanging pictures and stuff like that. We're gonna use that. We're just gonna hang it right over that screw. Okay, so if you have vinyl, if you looked in behind this soffit and this vinyl, there's the framing in behind it. There's like 2x6 or 2x4, depending on the framing, usually 2x6. All I did was put a 3.5-inch screw into that frame back there. So I just put it straight back where that soffit is. And I'll leave that there. You'll never have to remove that. I'll use that each year and just rehang the wreath on that. But I would use a longer screw, 3.5, 4 inches. And make sure it's biting solid. Make sure you've got some good, it's actually getting into the wood, and it's a good solid, anchor. So now I'm going to grab my wreath and put it up here. Okay, so I just went ahead and made it one single wire like I told you. So that's what I'm going to hook over that screw up there. Another little tip is I get in pipe insulation or pool noodles, whatever you can get. And I zip tie it to the bottom of the wreath, because when it gets windy in the winter, this thing's going to be banging around, and anything you can do to try to prevent it scratching the house or whatever, will be a benefit. Okay, I've got my 5-foot wreath here. This one, it comes with warm white lights, but to match this multicolor color scheme, I've just added some mini lights to it, multicolor mini lights. But how we attach this is by using this coated hanger wire. Like I said, you can get it in the hardware department where like fasteners are at like Lowe's, like screws and nails. They'll have a section for hanging pictures. This one I hung this way, but I found, this is one I did early last year. I found just having one single wire is a little bit better. So instead of anchoring it at 2 points, I would just have one wire right here, and then it loops over the screw. But either way works. So the challenge is getting this probably 50-60 pound wreath up there. It can be a little hairy. So what I'll do is I'll grab this with one hand like this, and I'll pick it straight up overhead and lock my arm out, and I'll actually carry it behind me while I use the other arm to navigate up the ladder. This is what I'll be holding, the cable, and I'll kind of set that over the screw, and I'll be under the wreath when that happens. And then once I get it all attached, I'll just kind of walk down the ladder, and the wreath will, as I pull the ladder away and as I get away, the wreath will just sit against the house. Okay, I've hung my wreath here. Now I've just pulled my ladder out of the way and let the wreath fall against the house, and then put my ladder back in the middle. And now I'm going to climb up and plug it in, fluff out any branches, kind of fill it out a little bit, and then just make sure everything's hanging nice and straight. Okay, I plugged our wreath in, got our wire hidden and tucked, and it looks really good. So can't wait to see it at night. The last step, which I don't have time for today, I'll have to come back first thing in the morning, is I'm going to wrap both of these palm trees with multicolor mini lights. But it should take me about maybe 20 minutes each or so. But yeah, this is basically it. This took, to reinstall it the second year, one person, probably a good 3 hours or so, 2 to 3 hours. If this was the first year, it would take probably twice as long as that. That's probably 5 or 6 hours, because you have to cut everything. That takes a good bit of time. You have to put your bulbs in. All right, guys, we're about to wrap these two palm trees in multicolor mini lights. I've got my 5mm commercial grade mini lights. I use the 4-inch spacing, which is 4 inches between each bulb. You can get them with 6-inch spacing, and they're a little bit cheaper, and they work fine as well, but we just prefer 4. I'm getting a GoPro so I can kind of work and you can watch it at the same time, but unfortunately I just have my cell phone now, so I can't really video me doing this. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the bottom, plug it in, and I'm going to start spiraling it around at about 5-inch spacing all the way up. And I'm going to use my hand in between the lines to kind of keep that right spacing. So I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, we've gotten both of our palm trees wrapped. If you look what I did here, I mentioned that you don't want to have any connections on the ground where they can get wet. So you can see I've kind of wrapped my power cord up here along the trunk where it's a good 6 inches off the ground. That way I'm not going to have that issue. And then I started running my lights, and how you run your lights is you have them balled up. It's called like a bird's nest. You can find videos on YouTube how to wrap your mini lights up into a ball. But as I was unraveling that ball, I was just running my hand around as I was wrapping the tree and using my hand for spacing so that you get a good consistent spacing there. So you can see it's pretty consistent going all the way up. Then once you're done, you can just kind of go back in and even out any areas that need to be evened out. When I get to a new strand, I kind of tie them together, kind of like you're tying your shoelaces, that way so you don't have a space in the lights. And then when you get to the top, if you have excess, you can just wrap it around down the trunk, in a lot steeper angle to get rid of the excess, and then kind of tie it off because it's rare that you're going to get right, the exact amount of lights that you need, which I did in this case. The other tree I had to hide the excess, but that's all you're doing. You want to make sure you wrap it nice and tight. You don't necessarily need staples if you wrap it tight, unless you have a place where the tree is getting bigger as you go up, because around that area these lights are naturally going to kind of fall down. So I've just placed a few, like one staple on each side around these areas to keep those from falling down, sliding down to the narrower part of the tree. But that's it. The thing about Christmas lights is you have to decide if it's worth it to add into your services, because it's really a service that you do once a year, and then you have a whole year to forget about it and forget what you're doing. So this tree took me 3 times as long as this tree, because it had been a year since we'd wrapped any trees. And in 3 or 4 weeks, when we've been doing this, the whole month of November, I'll probably be able to wrap this one 2 or 3 times as fast. So what we typically see is the first week of installations take about 3 or 4 times as long as the last week in the season, just because you're having to train new people, you're having to retrain yourself, you're having to get in the swing of doing this service. And that is one of the downsides. It's it's not like you can install Christmas lights all year round. So you have to go back and pretty much kind of start over every year, especially if you have staff that weren't with you the previous season.